Welcome back to part two of our conversation of License to Legacy, The Man with the Golden Gun. I'm host Javi Trujillo, and joining me, as always, is David Leigh from the James Bond Dossier. How are you today, David?
Hello, Javier. I am fine. I'm doing very well, thank you.
And of course, by his side is Bill Koenig of the Spy Command. How are you today, Bill?
I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for asking.
I want to pick up where we left off in our conversation. You had mentioned last time about interviewing the president of General Motors. Is that right?
He was CEO.
CEO. Okay.
It was after he had left the company. His name was Gerald Myers, and I interviewed him in 2002 when he was part of the business faculty at the University of Michigan. The story I was working on, Ford Motor Company, had been away from the Bond series, but got back in a big way with Die Another Day. So I wanted to talk to Gerald Myers about what it was like when he was a CEO. And, The Man with the Golden Gun is the only Bond movie with American motor vehicles. And we talked, and he said he was very satisfied because at his level, he had to sign off on it. He did not want to get into the financial details, but he said, American Motors got everything they wanted out of this movie, and of course, you have the car chase scene with Scaramanga in one AMC vehicle, followed by Bond in another AMC vehicle, and Scaramanga's car became a car plane, and Bond's car did the stunt we talked about in part one of this podcast, and he was very happy about it. I did mention to him how it had been estimated that Ford was spending $35 million on Die Another Day, and he kind of said, I'm not sure I would have gone for that, but that's all he said. He didn't, again, he did not specify how much his company had. For the uninitiated, American Motors was formed by the merger of a lot of second tier American car companies. The main asset they had was Jeep, and they got absorbed by Chrysler in the mid 80s. So anyway, but yeah, it was interesting to talk to somebody who had been in those negotiations and so forth. And I also have a photocopy of Richard Maybaum's script. Originally, like Tom Mankiewicz started the project, exited,
Yep.
and then Maybaum came in. In the Maybaum script, first draft script, it was a Ford, and instead of J.W. Pepper in the back of the car, it was like this Thai car buyer, and he was just not reacting as Bond was doing all this stunt driving and then whatever. And then at the end of the sequence, in Maybaum's script, I'll buy the car after after all that stunt driving. Of course, it ended up being J.W. Pepper in an AMC car, but anyway, just at least from Myers' standpoint, he's no longer with us. He felt AMC got everything they would ever dream from this movie. So
Plus the slide whistle.
except the slide whistle. Yeah, I suspect he didn't like that.
Do you feel like, granted, there's inflation between 1974 and 2002, but like he got two cars in the movie versus Ford at the time for Die Another Day. They had obviously the Thunderbird, which they were trying to bring back,
But they
and
also had
the
all those
Jaguar
European things:
and Aston Martin. So,
Aston Martin, Land Rover, Jaguar, and Volvo. Because remember, it's like in Die Another Day, like he's showing off the villain showing off his car collection. So it's
yeah.
like, yeah, like, the Thunderbird was kind of like a toss in. That was Jinx's car. That the whole purpose of that deal was to promote all the foreign brands that Ford owned at the time. Anyway,
I wanted to talk a little bit about Maud Adams. Um, she's not the first actor to come back and play a different character, but over time, I feel like she's the most prominent. Um,
Mm.
how did you feel about her becoming the titular Octopussy a decade later?
well,
Uh,
well, I can tell you something about that. Um, about 20 years ago, roughly 2004, 2005, she was in the Detroit area as part of a collectibles show. And I was there. And then her handler said, "Would you guys mind if we move this off the main stage?" Because, she was having some trouble with her voice. It wasn't full laryngitis, but, some. And of course, everyone's saying, "Yeah, sure, we'll do this." So at one point, of course, Bond comes up a lot in the give and take. And so she started to say, "Well, they put you up in the best hotels and all this stuff." I'd heard this before, and I was starting to tune out. And then she said, "But that's good because they don't pay you so much."
okay.
My guy sat up, whoa. And then she didn't say any more than that. When it came my turn to ask a question, because I knew everyone was going to ask about Bond. So I asked, she was in an episode of Hawaii Five-0 as a Soviet spy. So I said, "What about Jack Lord?" And then she started to say, "Oh, he thought he was Mr. Hawaii." And then she stopped, paused. "Well, I shouldn't say that. He was always nice to me." So anyway, that's all I can add. But just like, but when she said they don't pay you so much, like, okay, a little honesty here.
David, how did you feel about Maud Adams coming back into the fold and playing a different character?
Um, do you know what? I'm not sure it even registered, to be honest. So I now I don't care. I don't care. I can accept her as a different character. That's fine. So no. Well, what about you?
I don't think it really phased me too much because of just how young I was.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, okay, she's someone else. There's, especially today, there's a lot of talk about, I mean, there's always, you hear about typecasting, but then there's like, oh, so and so can't play this character because they were already this other character. Like Chris Evans can't be the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four and Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like that was a thing in 2010.
Mm.
Or Ben Affleck was Daredevil. He can't be Batman. But they're actors. That's what they do. They play different parts.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Well,
so
also actors, most of their early experience is on the stage. In plays, like, actors replace one another. Like, okay, this actor has to like go off to do another job, so another actor comes in, takes his or her place. And so actors, I think actors probably hate continuity when it comes to movie and TV
mm,
shows, because once upon a time, 60 or so years ago, an actor could appear on a TV show twice as different characters.
mm,
Then it evolved where it's like, okay, you can be on one episode of a TV show and you can come back the next year as a different character. Now it's gotten to the point with an actor, like, once you play one role, you can't play another role forever on a TV show.
yeah. I was thinking about this because in the 1970s in the UK we had 3 television channels, and the programming was mostly produced in the UK. It was either BBC or ITV, and but we had American programs. But certainly with the British programming, I would say that we used to see the same actors again and again and again in different programs. But you just got used to seeing you just get used to seeing the same actor playing a different part, and it was just part of television at the time. And so well, Octopussy was 83, so I guess things hadn't changed all that much by then.
Well, let's say Martine Beswick was in From Russia with Love and then played someone different in
Yeah.
Thunderball, but she didn't say anything in From Russia with Love. So like you can't quite make the same comparison
No, that's
because
absolutely true. Yeah.
No,
Maud Adams
but
was, a Bond girl
Mm.
and
but
then
on British
became
television, you had what was the guy in For Your Eyes Only? The villain,
Crispin
drawing a
Glover, not Crispin Glover, John
Yeah.
Glover,
Julian.
Julian
Julian
Glover.
Glover.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Julian Glover is on The Avengers. He's on The Saint, and he's on other things. Lois Maxwell was on The Saint. Robert Brown was on The Avengers. Other people. Burt Kwok was on like Danger Man and was on. I mean, there was like a relatively small talent pool.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Thanks, because you've just given some hard examples of what I was talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
because like I have Amazon Prime. It's like I didn't even know I had Amazon Prime. My wife signed up for it mostly for the shipping. So like
Yeah.
I've been like going through Amazon Prime, like, good grief. Shane Rimmer's was a voice on Thunderbirds. Lois
Yeah.
Maxwell was a voice on Stingray. It's like it was a small universe. And I saw some guy, this was on Facebook. He used to be the head of the US James Bond fan club. Oh, they should never have recycled everyone. It's like, it's like you do
what
what
she
you
had.
do to
Yeah.
Yeah.
make a show. That's like forget it, guy. Like,
Well, I was 6 when Octopussy came out, and obviously there wasn't an internet, but there were fanzines.
Hmm.
Do either of you remember any discourse or blowback at the time when Maud Adams was announced as coming back as someone else? Was that a thing?
it wasn't blowback, but the US fan club, Bond fan club, definitely made notice of Maud Adams coming back. And how it was the first time someone in such a lead part came back as a different character.
In the UK, I don't know. I wasn't involved with the fan clubs then.
And she's not the first person either to come back and play someone else. Like we
Nadia
mentioned, Martine
Regan.
Beswick, but I feel like she made it more acceptable. Um, oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. I'm trying to.
Well,
Joe Don Baker
Yes.
went
yes.
from being the heavy in The Living Daylights to the ally in Goldeneye, and I feel like at that point, from my recollection, it wasn't that big of a deal because we'd already had Maud Adams do something similar.
Nadia Regan was the woman in From Russia with Love.
Karen
Ali
Bay's,
Karimbe.
yeah.
Ali Karimbe. And then she's in the pre-credits of Goldfinger as the dancer. So I mean, that was standard thing. It's just like, as I said, in US TV shows, it was common.
Yeah. So
A TV show called Have Gun Will Travel, they had Robert Blake playing two roles in the same season. Like, that's just how it was.
yeah. Well, I was just thinking if the reverse is true, where Felix Leiter can be played by a different actor in each film, and Blofeld can be played by a different actor in each film. Well, why can't you do the opposite and have the same actor playing different roles?
Exactly. Yeah. It's fiction. Like, yeah. Anyway.
I think David just put out Christoph Waltz returning as M in Bond 26 into the universe. I think that's going to happen now.
Oh, God. I take it back.
Well, to compare it to another movie, switching gears here, whilst Man with the Golden Gun is not the juggernaut of merchandise that Goldfinger is, there are quite a few special items coming out this year, notably from Orlebar Brown and La La Land. Does anything excite you from the recent releases, David?
I think I'm not going to say anything about Oliver Brown. The music re-releases I think are more interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be so. I'm not so interested in the double CD. I'd be just interested
Really?
in. Yeah, I'd just be interested in having a full soundtrack, as it is in the film. I don't, because I think the second CD's bits and pieces and so on, isn't it? Or have I got that wrong?
I'd have to look at it again. I want to say the first CD is all the music in soundtrack order, in film
Yeah,
order. And then does the second then have the original release order with
yeah.
extra features?
Something like that, and I'm not so interested. I'm not so interested in that. Partly because I don't. God, I don't get time to listen to music like I want to as well. It's just one of those. It's just lack of time things. I don't know. 20 years ago, I think I would have loved it, but realistically, it's not going to get played if I get it. So yes,
I was just going to say the new CD coming out, which I've already ordered. I think that
Same.
is probably more interesting because if I remember correctly, that on the original soundtrack, the when Bond goes to Scaramanga's Island, that is actually not in the film in the original soundtrack. So the new soundtrack has the music from actually in the film. Now that's pedantic, I get that, but like, okay, and there are some of us like me who are completists, so like we're gonna eat all that up. So for me, the new soundtrack is the most interesting thing that's come out recently.
Yeah, like you, Bill, the second I saw that announcement, I rushed over to their website and pre-ordered both of them because I've been wanting to fill out those for a while, and the fact that everything is remastered and they've gotten stuff that hasn't been released before, that's a big win for me. I went to their website and it says disc one presents a score in chronological order and features music never before available. This is followed by additional music, including source music recorded for the film and the demo take of the title song. Disc 2 presents the original 1974 soundtrack album, newly assembled for this release. And then, of course, you've got liner notes from John Burlingame to round everything out. And well, I've got it on vinyl. Um, now I can put the CD in my car. My car has a CD player still, so I can enjoy it while I'm driving my kids around and absorb it that way. Or if I ever get around to rereading The Man with the Golden Gun, I can listen to it.
A very quick aside, I just
Yeah.
want to say that some of my James Bond fans, James Bond friends, they probably no longer consider me a friend for mentioning this, but like, they say things like, "Oh, like John, Man with Golden Gun, that's mediocre, John Barry. It's John Barry for
It's John
crying out
Barry.
loud. Like, that's a mediocre Picasso. I'm like, it's still a
Yeah,
Picasso. Like,
exactly.
come on. Like, I've listened to the original. I have the original vinyl. I have the original CD. It's like, is it the best Barry? Maybe not. Probably not. But it's still John Barry for crying out
No,
loud.
I,
It
I, I
just
like I do like the soundtrack, and because it's one of the things I do really like about the film. It's just the Bond moments with Barry are. I've said this before that Barry's music really elevates particular Bond moments, and there's
Yeah.
nothing like it. There's nothing else like it, and no other composer gets close. David Arnold does a very, very good job at getting close to that, but John Barry is it.
And
right.
apologies to my cousin Cole. I'd take a mediocre John Barry score over an excellent Hans Zimmer score any day of the week.
Yeah.
So
Boom, 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 boom.
yeah.
Hans Zimmer. Boom, 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 boom. Can I
uh,
go really
Go
quick
ahead.
about this? Was in the lead up here in the U.S. Here in the U.S., there was this syndicated talk show, the Mike Douglas Show, ran like 20 years, but it was like sold to local stations. And the format of the Mike Douglas show was each week he would have a co-host. So in the lead up to The Man with the Golden Gun, Roger Moore was his co-host. That meant that like 5 shows a week, Roger Moore was there. And one of the 5, he had Clifton James and Hervé Villachez as guests. And they had a clip when Bond arrives at Scaramanga's Island and Scaramanga shoots, but it's not the main golden gun of the movie. It's a long-barreled 45 that's supposed to be made of gold, and he shoots the cork out of the champagne bottle that's Nick Nack's bringing up. And it was a short clip, but oh yeah, it's like that got me hyped up because in Indianapolis they showed the Mike Douglas show on one of the major stations, and so I saw it. I watched all 5 of those episodes. So,
And I watched David Zaritsky's video on the Orla Bar Brown stuff. Yeah, and I saw the I got the email for the pre-release early access codes and was just completely baffled by the zebra shirt. I'm like, I don't know what this is a reference to. And then you read the description and it's inspired by the chair that Scaramanga was sitting on the beach. And then comparing the pattern on the chair to the shirt pattern, like it doesn't even come close. Like it's just, I understand there's a limited pool of things to be inspired or choose from, but like it doesn't, that to me was just like, I don't know why we're doing this. Like it doesn't, there's no real correlation for me. Like I don't feel it. Unlike, Scaramanga's tracksuit or like trying to emulate Roger Moore's safari shirt. Like I like those items. I'm not getting any of them because I don't really see myself wearing them day to day. But like I feel like some of their offerings are better than others. But nothing from that recent capsule really spoke to me as something that I want to have as a Bond fan. And I don't feel like outside of maybe 1 or 2 items, like the iconography from the clothing for this movie isn't really there. I think a lot of the
What?
yeah, I feel like a lot of the mystique
think-
comes more from the villain in this issue, from this movie.
Roger Moore's safari shirts are
Yeah.
iconic. What are you talking about?
I mean, it is. I just don't see myself wearing it in 2024. I couldn't pull it off. Pete Brooker can, because he's a style icon, but not. It would not look good. No one wants to see me in that. Just like they don't want to see me in the Sean Connery, Terry Toweling polo jumper outfit thing.
Well,
like no, my body was
real
not built
quickly,
for
can you
that.
talk about how this movie, the reaction it got here in the U.S., and it wasn't
Yeah.
good. Okay, so Marvel Comics at the time was starting to expand into different formats. And so regular comic books then cost 25 cents each. Marvel was coming out with black and white magazines that cost 75 cents. And they had one with, it was a kung fu thing. And so they had a title with Neil Adams. And, and it was a beautiful cover, wonderful cover. But then there was this long text article inside where the writer was named Don McGregor. Mm-hmm. He wrote for Marvel Comics at the time. He would later go on to write comic book adaptations of James Bond. Anyway, at some point in the article, I think he said he had seen Goldfinger 16 times or something like that. And this is the before you had home video. Anyway, he trashed the movie. He trashed Roger Moore. He trashed Guy Hamilton. He trashed John Barry. Just over and over again. It's like, he took something, set on fire, gathered the ashes, and set on fire again. I mean, that's how intense he felt. And I think you can find this online. They're PDFs, but it's just like, oh man, like I bought this, and like, whoa, my eyes like opened up wide as I read it. And then years later, I was like, the Spy Command was once part of a website called Her Majesty's Secret Service. And so in the 90s, the editors, surveyed the contributors, and like they wanted reviews for each movie up to that time. And I'll admit, I was there. And okay, this is what I wrote at the time. Bond looks silly when teenage girls outfight his adversaries. Such a joke undermines the notion Bond was in any danger. This shouldn't happen in a Bond movie. Christopher Lee is a major plus, but the portrayal of Mary Goodnight as a total ditz offsets much of that. John Barry threatens to undo much of his Bond legacy with the stupid music that almost ruins the big car jump. I've softened my opinion since that, but I wrote that and I own up to it. Here's some of the other comments, and I'll keep it brief. Quote, the first bad 007 film. It somehow has a cheap look. I find Maud Adams bland. Wonderful Christopher Lee is capable of so much more. And I won't read the others, but it's like this is still online. The site went offline, but there are these sites that preserve former
Yeah.
websites, and you can find it there. So
when were those comments made? What year was that again?
late 90s.
Late 90s.
Like 20, 25 years after the movie came out. So
Yeah.
like people are like still feeling really intense about it.
Well, bringing it back to like the merchandise aspect, despite those feelings, there have been model cars, there have been corgi cars based on Bond and Scaramanga's vehicles. Factory Entertainment has recreated not only the pistol, the golden gun, but they've done the Solex agitator, which I mean that it's just kind of like a rectangular. There's nothing design wise that appeals to me about the Solex agitator, but yet they've made it. They felt there was a market for that. But I mean that definitely doesn't like reach like the man with the golden gun, like having either a full size or a half scale replica of that.
Yeah. We did one better than the Solex agitator. We've had solar panels installed on our house. So
Are they 007 branded though? Does it have that in the corner on each one?
Yeah, I think they're missing something. Yeah, 50th anniversary solar panels with a Solex agitator. Yeah. We've got a load of bulky solar electronics inside the house, but no Solex agitator, unfortunately.
I think you just tapped into a new market there. But even video games, like, the movie gets derided by quite a few people, but that doesn't stop, the GoldenEye N64 video game from having a man with the golden gun mode, where not only can you acquire the gun, but it's like the movie. It's one shot and you're dead. If you get hit in the foot, the hand, the head, doesn't matter. You're out of the game at that point. So like that's something that's survived whatever the movie is.
I think people really do like the gun, because that's always seemed to be a really popular collectible. So and that on its own is iconic.
It's very stylish. Again, on one of the extras, it talked about how Peter Lamont was like putting it together under the table to surprise somebody, and it was very stylish.
Do either of you have like a favorite item of merchandise from the film that you own in your collection?
I'm not really a collector, I've got the film and I watch it occasionally. That's it.
I don't, but I do think one thing should be mentioned. This is historically an important Bond film in that it was the last time Harry Saltzman was involved. Now, by this point, Broccoli and Saltzman weren't getting along, so they would take turns being the lead producer. This was a broccoli one, but Saltzman's name is still in the credits. Shortly after this was released, they got into their legal tussle, and United Artists bought out Harry's investment in the franchise. But for that reason alone, it merits some. You know, it should be remembered just for that, if nothing else.
Well,
So,
that was going to be my final point. So let me
Mhm.
circle back to the merchandise aspect. I don't have really anything connected to the film other than like the video games.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned on a prior episode, the GoldenEye Rogue Agent game, the multiplayer level where you're fighting in Scaramanga's Funhouse, is one of my favorite multiplayer maps from any video game, Bond or not. But yeah, I don't have a replica of the Golden Gun. If I had a Funko Pop, I would send it to David because I know he loves those so much. but I don't. But I did want to close this episode of what Bill was talking about. Um, I think one of the main things for the biggest legacy I think this movie has is that it's the dissolution of the Cubby and Harry
Mhm.
partnership, which then led to, like Bill was talking about, like Harry had to get out of the partnership and MGM then came in,
Mhm.
and the ramifications of that. I mean, I feel like we're still feeling that today, because of the impact in production schedule, in financing. Um, does that dissolution tarnish this movie in any way in terms of legacy, or is it elevate it because this is the last time these two producers kind of worked on a movie together?
For me, I'm neutral. It doesn't mean one or the other. I'd never even thought about that before, to be honest. No, it's
I don't think it tarnishes the movie per se. And like the movie, this was the movie Cubby set out to make. And that's it. Like all that, all about the dissolution of the partnership came after. But it's still an important movie for that reason. So, and also just to make my position clear, I think Harry and Cubby together was a really important partnership. It's too bad it went awry as it went on, but I don't think we would have gotten the Bond series that we got had Harry not been part of it in the early days. So, and I this drives me crazy. I've seen this on Bond message board. Oh, Harry wasn't a real producer. He was a real producer.
mm,
Like
Yeah.
just
yeah.
people who watch movies on home video think they know everything. Well, they don't know everything.
Yeah.
So
The people
try and
who
do some research.
the people who must be most upset about the dissolution of the partnership, though, are Harry Saltzman's kids, though, I'd imagine. Because just imagine that they were in the same position as Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson now.
Well, and one quick addition: when recently Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson got the Irving G. Thalberg Award, Wilson made a point of mentioning Saltzman and others, and I like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I thought he was very thoughtful in his comments. So um, he's more thoughtful than a lot of Bond fans. I'll leave it at
Hmm.
that.
It's definitely the end of an era, and it's weird to think that because they were trading off at that point, because they were getting acrimonious, that really the final Cubby Harry production was really more of Cubby's production than Harry's. I mean, they talk on the aforementioned special features about Harry wanting to get shoes for the elephant stampede scene and ordered like 200 wooden shoes for these elephants. And they showed up, and Cubby was like, "What are these elephant shoes? Like, there's not an elephant in the movie. Why do we have 200
Hmm.
elephant shoes?" And that's kind of where his involvement ended. Um, so it's kind of sad that he it ended that way. But mean, this is what happens with, I mean, we're all human. We all have, personality differences and arguments. But I'm grateful of, like Bill was saying, like we got that partnership. Like I wouldn't be talking to you people today. I wouldn't know who you guys are if it wasn't for what they started. So this movie is definitely the end of an era. And then because of this movie, like we had that retooling going on, because it wasn't as well received and it didn't make as much money. Like they kind of had to take a step back, and then because of that, like we got The Spy Who Loved Me, which sent Roger Moore into like the stratosphere from then on for a lot of people. And despite what some people may say now, like we wouldn't have Bond today without Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. Like whether or not you like those movies is irrelevant because they were very successful at the time. They kept going. It gave us Dalton, it gave us Brosnan, it gave us Craig, and whatever comes next. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like the legacy of this movie is that it's a vital chain in the continuing arc of the franchise, and it gave us, whether you like it or not, it gave us the Eon that we have today. So,
no, I agree, and that's a very thoughtful comment.
Thank you. I think we're going to close it out for today. We're getting towards the end of our first season of episodes because we're approaching the holidays. And if you've been with us this far, thank you for listening. Any feedback is always appreciated, be it on social media or wherever you find this. Rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to it. David, do you have any final thoughts where we're going to go next when we come back, and where people can find you on the internet?
Right, to answer the first question, no, I haven't got any idea where we're going next. That's why we're taking a break to think about it. You can find me at thejamesbonddossier.com. I am on Blue Sky occasionally. I've pretty much given up on all other social media now. And there's my newsletter, which goes out once a month, where you get all the latest Bond news. So that's me.
How about you, Bill?
I have reached out to a couple people, no agreements, but if they come together, I think they will be great episodes. I can also be reached at the Spy Command, hmssweblog.wordpress.com. And, I've had a great time on this podcast, and I hope more people discover us in the new year. And, but great time, and let's keep going.
I think when we come back after the break, I technically, like, The World Is Not Enough is still 25 years old until next November. So I do want to launch into a license to legacy of The World Is Not Enough. And we'll see where we go from there. I kind of would have thought we would have had the next Bond series, comic wise, start off. And I don't think that's anywhere to be found yet. When they announced who the new team is.
Yeah.
But the first issue hasn't come out yet. So I'm not sure what's going on with that at the moment. And of course, I mean, like, I'm sure all of you listening, like, any announcement on Bond 26 in 2025 would be welcome.
I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to the episode where we talk about the latest Bond 26 news, and we've actually got something to talk about. Definitely.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
I agree with David. Yes, that would be nice. We've had some false news in the fall of 2024, so it would be nice for some real news.
Yeah, something concrete would be appreciated, and not just 007 Road to a Million Season 2. Like, an actual film would be most.
Yeah, what's happened to Season 2?
I don't know.
They've announced they're making one, but we don't know when it's going to come out or anything.
There's an announcement that the casting was taking place and so on. So
did they do both seasons back to back, the casting?
No. No.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Okay.
All I want is a special vinyl release of David Arnold's rearrangement for the theme song.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And also, we should maybe get more news on the Project IO video game next year. Hopefully, maybe
We'll see.
something to get younger fans in. But you can find me on Blue Sky at Javi True, JAVITRU, and The Bond Is Not Enough on Instagram. Again, just thank you so much for listening to this show and following us along, and all your comments and feedback are appreciated. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you for listening.